Hi, and welcome to Ignite Founders Session, where we want to lift the very important startup of Sweden and to see the potential in all the solutions that they have, where we can find collaboration with corporates and private sector. So I'm sitting here with Liam from Cellfion. Welcome.
Thank you.
So can you tell us more? What is Cellfion? What are you doing?
Yeah, so at Cellfion we're developing what's called an ion selective membrane. And this is a critical component that's used in a lot of different energy applications, for example, fuel cells and batteries. And it's one of the central materials that are used in this and can define basically the performance and the duration of these devices. Now, what we're developing at Cellfion is a very unique material. So it's actually based on wood material, so from the forest. So what we do is we liberate fibrils from wood cellulosa, and we fabricate those to make sheets of membrane. So it comes out looking a little bit like a plastic piece of paper. But what's unique about it is that we chemically modified this to be selective only to specific ions, which is an extremely critical parameter to have in a fuel cell or in hydrogen production, even for electrolyzers. And that what's on the market today is there's a lot of sort of fossil-based materials. So when we look at what's the commercial state of the art that stands for over 80% of the market, they're based on actually a PFSA, which is a subcategory of PFAS. And these are a substance that the EU are working extremely hard to ban and actually get rid of. And it's now led to major corporations such as 3M actually announcing that they will stop all production of the material by 2025. And that for a company of that size, it's around a $2 billion decision annually.
So there is a big need, opportunities upcoming, but you are a research-based company.
We are.
A startup, a deep tech company, and I know it's a long journey.
Yeah.
So can you tell us where you are on that journey?
Yeah, so I can begin with where we sort of come from. So Cellfion is spun off from two fantastic research institutes in Sweden, consisting of Linköping University and KTH's Royal Institute of Technology. And the research, I think, can backtrack almost to 2005, I think, when you look right down to when this actually idea came about and they started looking to paper batteries. But it's developed to the point where in, I think it was 2015, there was granted funding to specifically develop an ion selective membrane for the use in batteries and in fuel cells. Then around 3 years ago, we began looking into sort of the market potential for the technology. What could this actually be used for? And we discovered, an ion selective membrane, this could be used in 12, 15 different applications, everything from filtering applications to blue energy, where you can produce basically electricity from salt and water, or to water filtering, gas filtering, a range of different applications. But we really saw a pull for this material in the battery industry, more specifically the redox flow battery industry, which is a form of large-scale energy storage that can be used to, connected up to the electrical grids to use for peak shaving or to store energy from renewables, and then even for fuel cells that could be used within the hydrogen industry to convert hydrogen back into electricity. So these are found commonly within cars. So around a year and a half ago, on the 3rd of August 2021, we actually started the company Cellfion. And we've been very fortunate since then to actually be getting a bit of capital, and we've grown the company to be 7 employees now and 4 consultants, and we're looking to expand further. We have some recruitment processes ongoing at the moment, so it's been an extremely exciting journey so far.
But if I see, 1.5 years, and I see it's needed a long term to verify what market, what is the need, and so do you have that ongoing?
Yeah.
It takes a lot of to be brave for those large corporates to start to collaborate with the startup.
Yeah, so one thing that's been essential for our development, especially in the early days, was actually getting partnerships with people who can test and validate this so that we actually know what's going on. And having that done by experts as well was a really big thing, because we found out that this material, if you want to do a simple test in a battery, for example, there was actually a lot of different ways to do exactly the same test. So everybody had different parameters they were looking at. So it was very hard for us to know exactly how we stood compared to the commercial membranes that are available today. So what we had to get to know a lot more about was exactly how should we be testing this? What are the results that are most important? So by finding development partners that were extremely competent in this area has been fantastic for us, because we've been able to send them samples, get testing, get iterations, and we got a project together with a company in Gothenburg that we started a few months back, and that's been fantastic for us. The studies that we're getting back now, we really know our strategy, the product development, how we're going to get to the market, and the steps for taking forward one of these type of products, especially if you're going into sort of the automotives industry. It's quite a long process. The time to market can be somewhere between 5 to 8 years, and that's because there's so many different validation steps. They're going to want to look at the material, they're going to want to look at the material in the device. After that, they're going to want to do some sort of pilot, some sort of proof of concept, and then after that you have to become certified if you're going to go into one of these big companies. So the road is massive, and this is something that I've heard from a lot of different companies that have been spinning off research to startups, is that it is a long road to a commercial product.
And I mean, during that long journey, you need to have parallels tracks to verify it on, and to have the to finance that journey has to be a challenge as well, and to find the competence. And you mentioned the team has been growing. So what has been your successful part so far? Can you share a little bit about the team and how you work with that?
So I would say that our greatest success is definitely the team we're building. We have some of the most fantastic people working at Cellfion, and I often think about what Steve Jobs always said, that, you know, if you want great people to be in your company, you have to give them the right to make decisions, and you have to let them take responsibility for their work. And this is something that we've done since day one, and we've seen that it's been so effective, and why we've been able to actually develop so fast is that everybody comes with their own ideas, everybody pitches it in. What are we going to do to make this company better? And we do it as a collective unit. And one thing that we've recognized now, that it's maybe not enough to only have partners doing the testing, but we actually need to build that internal intellectual capital, basically, that we need to have a robust team in our company that can both the material but can even do the testing, the validations, so that we get the feedback loops done as quickly as possible, which is incredibly important when you're developing one of these type of materials.
But you mentioned the car industry, the battery. Is it any more industry that you're looking into, or maybe a call to action to somebody is watching? I mean, it's new materials. And I see
absolutely. Yeah, so there's no limitation. It's the world's your oyster. It's whatever we can imagine we can do. So what we're working with is a material that can transport ions selectively. So where can you apply that? It could be anything from gas filtering. It could be, we've looked into, sensors, for example. They need some sort of ion selective means. It could be within medical technology. There it's used a lot for dialysis, for example. So there is so much that can be done, and even for water purification in the future, which is going to be a huge industry. So there really is so much. So if people are looking for ion selective membranes and they're willing to go in for development projects, then of course this is something that's extremely interesting for us. But what we've had sort of main focus on, because when we're obviously developing a product as well, we need to have a focus application, because it's not a one membrane fits all applications. You need to chemically modify this and mechanically modify the membranes. There's a lot of work that goes into one application. So we've been focusing mainly on two applications. It's the PEM, basically the polymer exchange membrane, or proton exchange membrane, where we've been focusing on the fuel cells and the redox flow batteries. It's a similar kind of technique, and that's why we chose those markets. And we also saw that it was an exponentially growing market because of the energy transition. So it made sense for us to put our focus there. And from a strategic point of view as well, when we looked at where all the capital was going, I mean, I think it was in 2021, the most invested industry was climate technologies. So from that perspective as well, if we're going to pull out this new technology, then we had to be a little bit strategic with our choices.
So you've been a part of Ignite and had some meetings. Can you just share some of the experience or maybe challenges to be a small startup and to meet a large corporate and to try to really gain that trust between each other to start a collaboration?
Yeah, so the hardest thing when you're approaching large corporations is coming in to large corporations, actually getting in contact with them, and especially coming into the right person in that company. And that can't be easy. That's not easy, because when you look at major corporations, they can have so many different departments spread out over so many different countries, and you don't even know which department it is you actually want to speak with. But just getting that entrance into the companies has been fantastic, and this is something that Ignite helped us quite a lot with, and we actually got our first paying customer from Ignite Sweden. So one of the first ever matchmaking we did, and that was with one of the larger mining companies in the country. So it's been fantastically helpful for that, because we've not struggled, but it's one of those areas you have to put a lot of effort into to come into the right person. So that's a benefit that Ignite can really give to the startups, and yeah.
So what's the next step now? I mean, the journey is on.
The journey is on.
And we are so looking forward, of course, to see where you can find that big takeoff.
Yeah.
If you could address some call to action to the ones listening here, what would that be?
I think my call to action would be that we need these industry companies that are interested in this technology. So for us, it's the PEM stack manufacturers for fuel cells and redox flow batteries. They need to be brave and patient with new technologies, and see that there's going to be a benefit from this long term. We know how to adapt the material. We know what needs to be done. Now we just need that guidance. How do we get that to be the perfect product for what they are needed? And then, because it's going to be a long development curve, as it is for all companies coming from research. But it doesn't mean that it can't be a commercial development road as well.
Yeah, so we really need to be aware of this long journey. I think it's really nice that we took that part up to see that you have gone quick to come so far and be so people. So I'm hopefully your journey can be a little bit shorter, and to really have the industry with you on that one.
Absolutely. So that's always the goal, is that we want to come forward as fast as possible. We know the need for this. We even know the deadlines, that 2025 onwards, that's when these bans are going to start taking place for the PFAS. So we need to be, and that's only 2 years away now. So we really need to get forward this as quick as possible. And it's, in order for these sort of like bans to be fully doable, we also need to show that there is alternatives available, and that's something that we're developing. We are developing an alternative that, with the right degree of research and development, we can make it as good as what's going to be what our fossil counterparts have been so far. And that's a big part of it as well, just showing up and saying, this is available now, we're here, and come and work with us.
So my last question, I mean, I can see your why, and that you have a clear vision, but where are you in 5 years, Cellfion? So what's...
Yeah, so...
maybe we should say 10 years.
Oh, 10 years,
Rephrase it.
Okay, how ambitious should I be? No, so I really do believe that Cellfion has a very big potential long term. I mean, we know the market for the membranes, but it's also the case that we're building a robust company now, that we could be something more than just membranes as well. We can be something, we can maybe take a step in the value chain. We can begin to look into different applications. There's so many different things that Cellfion could do, but so we'll be looking obviously to a global market, and the steps obviously to get us there is that we're going to be looking now to go more to a industrial internal development, and then we're going to go to they'll be looking more towards our first kind of like factory, and how are we going developing our business model as well, because one thing that you can take as an approach for a company like us that's maybe going to be a component manufacturer in the beginning is that it's not the case that it's us that build the factory. You actually build the factory at your customers, because if you take a large automotive company, they need millions and millions of these membranes. So does it make sense if that automotive industry is in Asia? Does that make sense to have the production here in Sweden? Or how should we do there? So it's also about developing your business model over the next couple of years.
So thank you so much for sharing in this founders session, and I'm so looking forward to follow your journey, and best of luck.
Thank you,
Liam.
Thank you for having me.